again, welcome everyone to VDC Tasks Are Streamlined with Ideate BIMLink. My name is Richard Taylor. My background is architecture. I have over 20 years of Revit experience. I was one of the original employees at Revit Technology before Autodesk acquired it back in 2002. And then I worked for Autodesk as one of the product managers for Revit, excuse me, for about 5 years. And then I worked with various architecture and software development firms. You can always feel free to contact me at the information below at richard.taylor@ideatesoftware.com. You can follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I even have a Facebook business page as well. So Ideate Software creates 5 add-on applications for Revit. And you see they're on the screen: Ideate BIMLink, Ideate Explorer, Ideate Sticky, Ideate Apps, and Ideate Style Manager. And today we're going to be focusing on Ideate BIMLink. But I just wanted you to know that we do have a portfolio of applications. So we're here to talk about BIMLink, and we're here specifically in the context of virtual design and construction. So Ideate BIMLink allows you to take all of the robust data within your Revit model and be able to send that out to Microsoft Excel for maybe manipulation purposes. We're going to talk about that with our QTO, where we're manipulating that data into a summary. But other times you may want to review the information, make changes, and then you can actually pull those changes back into the Revit model. And we're giving you more access to the Revit data. So typically when you're thinking about data within Revit, you interact with the data most likely in a schedule format or the properties palette. And there are times where you know that that data is accessible, or you know it's there, but it's just hard to review in a schedule format. So we're giving you the ability to look at, as an example, not only the category, let's say floor systems, right? But then maybe other things that relate to those floor systems. And we're going to talk about coordinates. We're going to talk about phasing information, design options. And so we're able to look at much more of that data in a more comprehensive way. We're going to be able to edit the parameters if we need to, or review. We can also rename families and types. And that's something very important for COBie data if you are looking at COBie as a construction professional, because there's a very specific naming schema that you have to adhere to. And then all of our solutions are compatible with the BIM 360 via the Autodesk desktop connector. So what I mean by that is when I export out an Excel file, that Excel file can live in the area, or live on a sort of a directory that's managed by the desktop connector, which is therefore in BIM 360. So why use Excel? I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, is that Excel is very powerful. Many design professionals understand it. You can do formulas, you can do cut and paste and copy down, a lot of things that just aren't available in the Revit schedule. And then in addition to this is you could have someone on your project team working in Excel, doing manipulations, and they may not even know Revit at all. So you're really extending the project team with the use of Excel. And then not only can we manipulate the data in the sense of changing, let's say, the names of families or types, but we can also create elements as well. So these are all of the list of elements that we can create with Ideate BIMLink. Today, I highlighted that because we're going to specifically be talking about generic models and creating kind of a point node. So maybe you have a survey collector or a data collector with a number of points, and you want those points to be reflected in the BIM model. That can be done by placing this generic sort of point node within the model. Another thing I want to highlight is that, especially for VDC managers, is that laying out the initial project, you might want to create levels and views and sheets that match your standards. And I have a whole separate webinar as well as video on placing, like project setup, basically. It's placing new sheets and viewports and views to get you started. So that may be something you want to take a look at as well. And when we ship BIMLink, or you open up BIMLink for the first time, it ships with about 350 sample link definitions. And you're going to see a link definition is the parameters, sort of like a schedule in a way, in the sense that it's telling you which parameters you want to review, you want to send out to Excel. And in fact, there are many examples for construction links. And what I'm going to do real quickly is I'm going to switch over here to the directory, and I'll point this out again. This is the samples directory under BIMLink, and you'll notice that there are assemblies links, there's construction QTO, which we're going to show in a second, but there's also, I just want to highlight, there's an Excel file called construction QTO that I'm going to be using today. That's here and delivered with BIMLink, and then that point file, which is a generic model allowing you to place a 3D point that you can extract coordinates from. That family is also part of this construction link samples. So just to point out where that information is. So the agenda today, we have a short period here, and I just want to kind of give you a highlight of some virtual design and construction tasks for Ideate BIMLink. And so, of course, I can't cover it all. It's going to be very short, but I wanted to kind of highlight three things, which is the quantity takeoff, looking at coordinate data, both exporting that from the model to Excel, and then importing maybe information from Excel back into the BIM model, and then looking at mapping some of that data to Revit schedules. Much of this is available or for more intensive review in our support topics. So if you go to our support on our webpage, go to BIMLink construction tasks, you'll see basically the same agenda. You've got create quantity takeoff, receiving field coordinates, and then sending coordinate data to the field. And there's a lot more information and videos. So I would highlight that, that's a good way to learn a little bit more. So let's talk about BIMLink quantity takeoff. So the quantity takeoff allows you to look at all phases, all design options. It's a true multi-category takeoff. So, again, we were talking about schedules in Revit are fairly limited. And we include this sample macro-enabled Excel file. So I think the best way is just to go ahead and show this. So I'm going to switch over to Revit. Today I'm using Revit 2021, but we have versions of the latest version of our software that was released in May is available for Revit 2018, 19, 20, and 21. So that's the latest and greatest on the last 4 versions. So you notice that we have all of our ribbon panels here. You may be for construction, you're working in architecture, or you're working in systems for, MEP. Once you install any one of the Ideate software applications, you'll have an Ideate software ribbon panel. And you'll see that I have all of the Ideate software applications that I mentioned earlier, Explorer, Sticky, Style Manager, and then the apps collection of productivity tools. But today we're going to be looking at Ideate BIMLink. So when I access BIMLink, I get this dialog. The left part of the dialog is completely customizable by your firm. And then over here, we have existing links. And so these are definitions. If I wanted to create a new link, I would come over here. And the easiest way, as I mentioned, is through the library. So the library is over 350 link definitions. So what I'm going to do is, maybe I don't exactly know where it is. I know it's under construction, but let's say I just don't know. I'm going to type in QTO. And it comes up with construction QTO and primary option. So I'm going to select on the construction QTO. It's an instance link because we are looking at every single element instance within the project. And you're going to see that we have different link structures. Some of them are instance, some of them are types that will manipulate different data. So I'm going to say next. What it's doing is, as you see, it's loading those link properties and it's loading a sort of preview of the elements. And so in this case, it's selected every single category. And so for my demonstration today, I don't want to export out all this entire model. So what I'm going to do is say uncheck all, and I'm just going to do a couple categories. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'd like to look at, let's say, floors. So I'll highlight that category. And then I'm going to do roofs and do that. And we'll do walls. Right? And let's do doors. So I can you see that I'm just typing in, very similar to like Google. And maybe one more. I'll do ceilings. So when I want to see what I have selected here, right, if I undo that, I now have that I'm just exporting out ceilings, doors, floors, roofs, and walls. And so there's a preview down below of the information that's going to be exported. And you'll notice under the properties, these properties, which is the phase created, design option, level, category, family name, they match the information within this spreadsheet that we deliver. But again, you can always customize this and add additional properties. So what I'm going to say is done, and we're going to export this. And I have, you see here, a construction QTO. So I'm going to select on that. And it knows that it's already existing, right? So it says, well, do you want to overwrite the worksheet? I'm going to say, yes, I do. I want to put this new data here. Once I export that, I can now open up the file and look at it directly within Excel. Now, what you see here is a summary. It's a pivot table. It's a summary of this tab, which is the construction QTO. So think about this tab is sort of the raw data, if you will. So it has all the information, right, that's been exported out. And then what we've done is in this tab, we've summarized the information. So you'll see we only have doors, floors, roofs, walls, and there should be, and ceilings. So as an example, if we come down here to the walls, we have 318 walls. You can see this is the, I believe the second one is the linear length. We have sum of area and sum of volume. So we took that information and we manipulated it in Excel with a pivot table to show exactly what we wanted. And so this pivot table could be brought back into Revit via our product called Ideate Sticky, or it could be manipulated in such a way and creating like 8.5 by 11 sheets of this quantity takeoff. So again, just a real quick summary of QTO. Now, I also wanted to show that if we have a search here back in my project, and I'm going to say, let's go here to new, and I'm going to do rename. And we have project standards, rename types. And remember I talked about Kobe? And so this is a type link. You might want to rename all of the families or all of these, let's say, floor or roof systems. So I'm going to say next here. And just to save a little bit of time, instead of exporting this out to Excel, I just want to show you that this can be done interactively within the Ideate BIMLink dialog. So right now we have this ceiling. It's a, let's say the type name is generic ceiling, but for Kobe requirements, this is a conference center. So I have to say it's CC ceiling 1. And it has a type mark of, let's say 101. So I can actually enter and edit the information here if it's a one-off or maybe a couple of them. Most likely, again, we wanted to send this information to Excel, make the edits, and then import. But I just wanted to show you that that is possible to be able to edit that information. So back over here, just to wrap this up for the QTO and the construction links, is that this sample data is, if you install the software, either a trial mode or you have the full version of the software or the license of the software, it's available in the samples link. And in my case, it was under the version which was Ideate Software 2021, but it will have a version and then samples and then construction links. Okay, now let's say you want to extract some coordinate data. So information like maybe point data or line information like the first point of the line, second point of the line, for instance, for a grid, right? The starting point and the ending point for a grid, and maybe the angle of the grid. So for many years, this has been available in Ideate BIMLink, and we've called it coordinates. Well, just recently, if you are familiar with using the coordinates, we've renamed the coordinate system because we've added a new one. So what you used to use was called just coordinates. It's now called coordinates survey. And then the new coordinate system that we've made available as a data table is called coordinates internal. So think about the survey is really the shared site survey coordinates. And then you could also do your internal project coordinates. So that's why I put over here recommended for shared site. I think that the coordinates survey is probably the one that people are going to use most and that they have used most. But again, wanted to make sure that you understand that there's actually two coordinate systems that we can access. We can also access much of the host data. and we can export points, or we can import information. So I'm going to show both of those systems here. So the types of coordinate data that we can extract are really based on the element of Revit. So some elements only have point coordinate information, right? X, Y, and Z. Some have, like I said, with the grid, you have the starting point of the grid, line 1, and then the ending point of the grid, line 2. And then there's the line XY angle. Then for other elements like room shapes, you have a bounding box, which can be the lower left and the upper right, but then you also have the point. So for like rooms and spaces, the point is where that X symbol, like when you move that around in the room or the space, there is that where the two cross, that's the actual point that we're extracting. So again, this table is available within our help system, but it's good to know there are different types of coordinate data available. And so we've preloaded some of this coordinate information into our sample links. So we have the Kobe coordinates, has the point coordinates already applied. The sample link QC grids uses the XY angle property. So just give you a couple examples of those. And then, as I said, we have access to much of the host information as well. So in this case, we're looking at generic models, but I can see the host ceiling, floor, roof, wall, and so forth. So we can use that coordinate data to export information. So like if, let's say the room information, as I said, maybe I want the bounding box, right? The lower left and the upper right, and maybe even the point. But there are times when Revit doesn't have the points we need. So what we can do is we've included that node family where then I can extract additional information. So let's take a look at this. Again, switching back over here to Revit, I am going to open up a new, or I shouldn't say new, but a different project, which is my Revit Advanced Sample Structural Project. Now, this is, again, just the sample project that's delivered with Revit for structure. But you'll notice something here is what I've already done is I went into the family, which is this pile cap family that I'm highlighting here. And I added nodes that are delivered with Ideate BIMLink. As you see, that's with this on the lower left, lower right, and all basically of the lower part of the pile cap and the upper part of the pile cap, just to be able to extract that information. So now when I come over to Ideate software and I come to BIMLink, right, there is a link that we include called generic model survey points. So assume all of those are survey points that I want to review. And then I can look at the properties here. And by default, you've noticed I've got the survey point X, Y, and Z. I've got the host information, the family name, the type name, and some comments. So I'm going to say, OK. I'm going to export this to generic model survey points, save, and overwrite that information. So here is where, again, for the field, I might be reviewing information in the that X, Y, and Z, right? And this is a pile cap. And then, in fact, everything that's gray means that it's review or read only. So I'm just extracting the points here for review. The white means that I can make changes. So, if I said, I don't know, verify in field or something as a comment, I could take that comment and, just pull it down and say, okay, I want all that to be updated. And then after doing my review, I could import that back. And so all of those survey points, they remain the same. It's just the only thing that's been updated is the comment section, which I said, verify in field, that I might want to add that, right, to that new Excel value. So let's go ahead. I'll say import. That's fine. So again, that's adding that particular point. Very easy. Now, what I'd like to do is talk about the reverse, which is maybe using Excel to add the points into the model. So what we can do is we can obtain the XY point data from either a survey collector or data collector, right? Then we are going to export that template that I just used, which was the generic model with sort of a base, parameters. Then we're going to copy the information from the data collector, the X, Y, and Z coordinates, and then import that into Ideate BIMLink. So you look at the Excel files over on the left, it's kind of a raw import of just XYZ information. We're going to copy that over to columns D, E, and F. And then the family that we're going to create is that Ideate point, that 3D generic model point, to be able to look exactly where that is. So for this, I thought the best way to show this, since I don't have a data collector, I just want to add some points maybe on this pile cap, right? So what I'm going to do over here is go back to BIMLink, and I have another sample link. And this sample link, if I search, it's going to be under my new, actually we'll call it generic. So notice there's generic model create new. So this link can be used to create new instances of generic model elements, which is that point node is a generic model family. So I'm going to say next. And you'll notice that right now the default only shows X and Y. I would also like to have Z. So from generic models, here's where I can pull down the drop-down list. And I can go over here to, you notice that here's the coordinates internal, coordinates survey. I want survey because that's my sort of default survey point. And I'm going to double click that and I'm going to add. So now I have X, Y, and Z points here. And then as a preview. So I'm going to say done. We're going to export that out. And I don't think I have this file, so we're just going to go ahead and save that. And then open that file up. And again, it's very similar to the previous one, except that it has basically just the X, Y, and Z points. And if you scroll down, you can see that I've organized this based on those that are at 0, those that are at 1200. So 0 is at the top of the pile cap, 1200 is at the bottom of the pile cap. But maybe I wanted some points midway. And so since I don't have a data collector, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to highlight these, the last two, right? And I'm going to do Control C and Control V. So I just add some new information there. And what I'm going to do though is change this to -600. So I want the Z value to be halfway. And then I'm going to use Excel to pull that down to -600, but I'm going to keep the same X and Y points. Now, the key here is there's no element yet. And so there's no Revit element ID. So I'm going to type new. This tells BIMLink to create a new point at that location. So I'm going to say save. So basically it's going to have the same X and Y coordinates, but there's going to be a new point at the -600 for these two pile caps. So I hit save. I'm going to come back over here. Now import. And we're going to import from that new. Select open. And great, those new elements were created. Now, once I create those elements, it's kind of hard to know exactly which pile caps, but I'm going to cheat a little bit and I'm going to use Ideate Explorer, another tool that we have. And the reason I'm using Explorer is because I can query on those pile caps or that generic model height. So in this case, I'm going to look at the entire project. I'm going to come over here to generic models. So let's come down to generic models. And there's the Ideate PT, which is that point node. And I'm going to use query. And I'm going to say, look at the coordinate value. Right? So there's the coordinates for point Z. And you will now notice that there is 192 at 1200, 192 at 0, and 7 at the 600. So I'm going to select on that 600, say select, and now I can expand and I can double click and go to one of those, right? And so now if I zoom up and let's say click on that node, you can see, sure enough, there were 4 nodes that were created at the -600. So like the other one here, right next to it, the pile cap doesn't have that node. It only has the top and the bottom, but I added points to halfway on the pile cap, just to show you that that might have been brought in from a data collector. And instead of being on the pile cap, it could have been on the top of foundation or bottom of foundation. But it's very easy to bring that data in as a point node that then you can use to verify within the building information model. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to just talk about here is once you have this, bring in this information, or you might want to extract the coordinates, the X, Y, and Z, is that you might, to show it in a schedule, you'll need to create a shared parameter, because the shared parameter will be able to be shown in a schedule, and then you need to map that X, Y, and Z that we chose to that shared parameter. So there is some data mapping, but it's not too difficult. So like in this case with the structural foundations, what I've done is I created an X, Y, and Z. I just called it Ideate X, Ideate Y, Ideate Z as the shared parameter. And then as I mentioned earlier, if you download that document, there is a link to Ideate BIMLink videos. If you go to the Ideate BIMLink videos, there we have playlists. And if you click on the playlist here, you see at the top there, I've selected the Construction and Facilities Management playlist. And there you'll see a much more comprehensive video on the QTO. So for virtual design and construction, you'll see kind of an overview for VDC, some of the point import and export that I showed today. You'll also see construction sequencing, and then kind of I just threw in there an overview on data management, just sort of if you're not familiar with how BIMLink works, it gives you a nice little overview. So those are 4 videos that I would highly recommend for virtual design and construction professionals to learn a little bit more about how Ideate BIMLink works. And before I go to the survey, I want to see, Sash, is there some questions? It looks like there was one about if the information is saved in the Revit model. And that's a good question. So the link information, or the Ideate BIMLink information, and all the link definitions are saved. So when I save or save to central, the next time I go into the model, I will have that information.
Yep. And Richard, we did have another question that actually came through the chat. I was having a chat with one of the customers. And the question was, what's the difference between using query and using find when using Ideate Explorer? Now, I know that's an Ideate Explorer question, but if you wanted to answer that since you did a quick Explorer demo, that'd be great.
When you say find, you mean just the search?
Yeah, just the search.
Oh, well, Ideate Explorer, by default, when I switch back over here, it's giving you several selections to sort of find elements, right? Or review elements. The easiest is by category. So it's sorting things by family, or by category, family, and type. We can also sort things by level, phase, room, space, or if it's a work shared file, by work set. But if I sort by category and I'm looking at the structural foundations, again, I can actually drill down to the pile cap, but I don't know any of the properties about it. So if I want to search based on a property, any particular property, that's where I would use query. So you'll notice then here are all the available structural foundation properties that I can use to search for an item. So I'd say the first pass is like category, family, and type. But if you want to go deeper, that's where you would use Ideate query. So
and then the search right there allows.
Yeah. Yep. So if I come over here and do entire project and maybe type in concrete as an example, it's going to look at things that analytical beams, floors. There may be even text notes that actually have the word concrete, right? Slab in them. And then floors, there are, floors that have this concrete decking. This probably has, generic concrete. So it's looking for where is that in the family or category, family, or type, or if there's a piece of text that maybe has that information.
Basically like a keyword search for families versus drilling down into parameter criteria using the query.
Exactly. That was probably a better way to describe it, Sash, so thank you.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So I know we're about a couple minutes over the top of the hour, and we promised to be succinct on this. And I know, again, this is just a very high-level overview, and we can't do all of the tasks for virtual design and construction. But we do have, like I said, a number of videos where you can learn a little bit more. And there are specific videos that I have on renaming elements within Ideate BIMLink for COBie standards. Also, like I said, for virtual design and construction tasks, and there's more sort of the even renumbering things for pile caps and so forth. So again, if you want to explore that construction playlist, that would be a good place to start. So again, please fill out the short survey at the end of the webinar. And we can stay online here for a couple minutes if you want to ask us any questions. I really appreciate your time and consideration today, and I hope this has been quite valuable to you.